Teresa's with me today. Elaine is away for today and tomorrow. She'll be back on Wednesday into the office. But Pat Ziemer here with Teresa, our Director of Training. Good morning, Teresa. How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm hanging in there. I can't complain. Things seem to be okay. As always, if you have a question, simply post it in the chat box and we will be able to answer your questions and be able to happy to address whatever it is that you might like to discuss on this edition of Office Hours. Teresa, you have live training coming up this week?
Yeah, we have hands-on training this Friday and pretty much all Fridays throughout the summer and the fall.
Cool. Have you been getting good turnout?
We have been getting great turnout and a lot of good questions. It's really fun. We're going to a new facility this year. It's called Second Stride. So we're actually working on a partnership with them. So we really help all off-the-track thoroughbreds. So they always have a variety of issues, and you pretty much you can work on any horse there and variety of issues. And it's been amazing seeing them transform from the beginning to now.
Great. Facebook users, if you're a Facebook user and you're coming in and you tell us hello, please put your name so we can tell who we're talking to, and if you have additional questions. So just place your name in there. We got Lindsay with us, Eric's with us this morning, Facebook user from Minnesota. Good morning to everyone. Kathy's with us this morning. Good morning, Kathy. Vivian's with us. Hello, Vivian. Shannon's with us this morning. Hello, Shannon. How are you? And so oh boy, a lot of folks are coming in. Hazel's with us this morning. So that's wonderful. There are a few things that we probably need to go over, things that are happening. As you know, you can now be added to receive a text when the office hours is set to begin, or if you want to, when Elaine goes live, which she does all the time with different questions and comments and information, she'll go live and you'll receive a text message. There's a link. It's been posted in the Certified Practitioner Facebook group, so you can go there, click the link, add your phone number, and you'll receive a text message anytime someone goes live or when there's something special to be discussed. So you can do that. What's the QR code in the corner? Can they do the same thing there, or what's that about?
The QR code is to sign up for the text notifications.
Okay, so you can just simply take a picture of the QR code that's in the upper corner of your screen and be signed up for the text notifications as well. That's pretty neat. That's a good idea to get people on the show. Okay, another thing here that needs to be discussed is the Maya Pro Business Bundle is now available. You can purchase the business bundle with the Maya Pro. Our business bundles save over $2,000 in cost and give extra attachments, 9-foot extension. You get 4 extra attachments, 9-foot extension, 2 certifications. So it's pretty cool. A lot of different situations there. And the Maya Pro is going very well. We're very excited to have it back into the marketplace. What kind of comments have you been receiving, Teresa?
We've got a lot of people saying hi from like Colorado, Utah. A lot of people love the new texting feature, so that's a really cool thing that we were able to roll out. We did get a comment from Patty. She came to visit us a couple weeks ago for hands-on training, and she actually brought her 2 dogs and 2 Shelties. So we learned a lot from using MagnaWave on them and more about the whole agility world and how MagnaWave is used for like pre and post performance.
Cool. That's great. I met them. I was in the office the day they were there. Her husband was with her, and he was walking the dogs, and got a chance to meet him and visit a little bit. That was great. So about the Maya Pro bundle, have you been getting good comments about the Maya Pro?
Oh yeah, I've heard awesome things about the Maya Pro. It's really great that it has like the Schumann resonance underneath it. So people have been very happy with how it works, and horses have been loving it so far. And I mean, you can't get much better with 4 extra attachments. It's just the whole bundle right there ready for you.
Ready to go. And you can do 6 months same as cash if someone is interested with no interest. That's a pretty sweet deal. So there you go. Let's see. We had a before and after testimonial contest to win an LZR, and the winner of that was Heather Stout, story on Harper the German Shepherd. Great. Mm-hmm. That's pretty exciting. So Heather, you'll be receiving your LZR, and go forward and treat.
Yeah, that was an amazing testimonial with the German Shepherd.
Great.
So I'm very glad MagnaWave was able to help in that situation.
That's right. That's exciting. And of course, we have the buyback program. If you have an older machine that you'd like to trade in or turn in, we'll buy it back, and you can apply that to another machine that you may wish. We'll also buy, if you have a competitor's machine, we'll be happy to buy that back from you as well. So the buyback program is available, and if you're interested, you can reach out to your sales professional or your product specialist, and they can help you with that whole process. So if you have a competitive device that you'd like to trade in for a Magna machine, now is the time. You can get sales at MagnaWave PEMF to find out all the details about the buyback program. If you have any questions, put them in the chat box, and Teresa and I would be happy to have a look at them. Let's see if we've got anything. Let's see, any questions? I don't see any questions in the box. Loved hands-on training. I was looking, Teresa, at a couple of things on the practitioner portal, questions that folks have asked, and maybe we can have a look at some of those. Is there somewhere in the app, let's see, what's the question? Somewhere on the app, or is it possible to get a document written up with specifics to how MagnaWave is different from other PEMF companies? I know there's a picture with just the beamer. Difference between frequencies and so forth, long-term healing, short-term. The difference between the different PEMF devices typically comes in the area of strength. Our devices are high power, PEMF, high voltage, and that means, all that means is that you typically get a quicker response with what you're doing with the animals. That's what basically propelled us in the beginning. I was able to work on a horse for 20, 30 minutes, and they get on the horse and come back and say, my gosh, the horse changed leads better. The horse paid attention to what I was doing, had a better range of motion, just listened to me better. And so it was just those kind of results that people were getting instantaneously. And that's one of the differences. Specifically, people will try to go in and talk about their signals or how things are different from device to device, and that's all there. We don't like to get in the world of knocking other devices. Most PEMF devices are very beneficial and they work. The biggest difference is the company, how you enjoy working with the particular company, the training, how someone like Teresa and Carson can work with you to provide you the training you want, the backup that you need when you have specific questions. The difference with the machines, if it's a low power device, you're not going to feel it. It's going to take longer to use. You'll use it every day for an hour or hours, however you want to have a look at that. With the high power devices, as I pointed out, they're much quicker in their usage time, and the results are there. There are specifics if you have specific questions with regard to Gauss settings and so forth. That's where Teresa and the product specialists would come in. Any thoughts there, Teresa?
You pretty much covered it. There is a lot of marketing that also goes on with like other companies that I see. They try to use different terminology, but at the end of the day, it's really like the intensity and the hertz that you gotta look for and really understand it's really within the comfort of the animal, and the animal will choose what's best for them.
There you go. Perfect. Let's see, where do you find the latest rent-to-rent deal? That would be in the practitioner portal, is a question that someone has asked. Has anybody had experience with cellulitis? Can you address cellulitis for us a little bit, Teresa?
Yeah, you can definitely use MagnaWave if a horse has cellulitis. It can help with some of the fluid buildup. That is definitely something I would work with your veterinarian or medical professional on, because sometimes you get assigned antibiotics or other medications. So you just want to make sure everyone is on board with the same wellness routine going on with the horse, but it can definitely help relieve some of the fluid buildup that is in the leg.
Right. Perfect. Question was asked, I know working on pregnant anything is not good idea. What about mama dogs after they have their puppies? Is there a length of time to wait, or just had 8 beautiful babies yesterday? Thank you. Well, certainly you want to make sure that there's no bleeding or anything. If everything went normal and there's no blood problems or bleeding problems with the mother, you can pretty much start right away to relieve some of the discomfort that the animal may be feeling from having the pups, and to help the animal to recover more rapidly would be something that would be beneficial and with the mother of the puppies. So that's thought. What do you think, Teresa? Any thoughts there?
I completely agree with you. Just want to make sure a lot of the major trauma is out of the way, because sometimes when you can't apply PEMF, I mean, it's a sensitive area. So you want to make sure to go about it low and slow in the beginning. The one thing also to kind of keep in the back of your head is sometimes with lactating animals, it can kind of help with milk production, which is really great at the beginning, but that's always just something to keep an eye on in case they start producing too much milk.
Correct. Okay, let's see. Any tips on showing up at a farm unannounced? Should we be doing that, or should we try to contact before we show up or drop flyers? Also tips once we are there. Great questions. When I first started pretty much working the racetracks and the shows in Florida and Kentucky, you go to a farm and you just, it's a funny situation. There was a time when I was in college that I wanted to make some extra money. And so I decided I'm going to sell Fuller brushes. Some of you may not even know what a Fuller brush is. I don't know if the company's still going, but it's a door-to-door sales gig. And so I thought I can do that. I can talk and laugh and have a good time. So I'll just become a Fuller brush salesman. So I got my little kit and I had Debbie drop me off on the corner where it's going to march into a neighborhood. And I stood on the corner for 2 hours because I was scared to death and I wasn't going to go into that neighborhood. And finally she came. We didn't have cell phones, so I told her when to come back. So she shows back up and she says, "Did you move?" And I said, "No, I'm just standing here watching the cars go by." But then later when I'm calling on farms in Florida, you pull up and get out and you go in, and I realized one day I'm doing door-to-door sales and direct selling, if you will. But if a farm has a gate, you got to try to talk to somebody if they're not going to let you in, or if you have to have a code to get in. So certainly maybe drop them an email or make a phone call, ask them if you can come by and see them. But if they're open, I always would just stop in and say hello, tell them who I was, what I'm doing. Do they have any interest? Do you know what I'm doing? And they would, start asking some questions. And so don't be afraid to do that, to ask questions. The thing that you want to make sure of, and it's interesting, I'm using this in one of my books that I'm preparing now, you got to be confident. You got to be committed to what you're doing. If you walk into a farm and you get out of your car, like I was standing on the corner trying to sell brushes, and you're not confident in what you're doing, or you're not committed to that, they can read you like a book. They'll be able to tell that you're nervous. If they see that you're nervous, they'll think that you don't know what you're talking about, and they won't want to give you the time to talk to them. So be very confident. Work on your elevator speech, if you will, your introduction. Be comfortable in doing that. Practice that. I was watching a video the other day where it talked about if you would spend 15 minutes, it's called the 100-hour rule. If you would spend 15 minutes a day, every day, trying to perfect something. Maybe you want to learn how to play the violin. Don't practice for 4 hours. Practice for 15 minutes a day. Every day in a year, you will be, or 100, as they say, 100 days, you will be an expert in that, because you're going to get better because you practice every day. So you need to do that. Do that with your introduction to your folks. Be comfortable when you walk up. Leave a brochure for them. Leave a card for them. Get a book, the video book. There's the deal, right, Teresa? Mm-hmm. Get the video book, leave it with them, gives you a reason to go back and see them in a couple of days. They're more comfortable, you're more comfortable. The book does a lot of explaining for you, the video book. So there's some thoughts on what to do and how to do it in those situations. What do you think, Teresa?
I completely agree. Video booklets are great, but also if you even have brochures, a lot of barns have like a bulletin board or a lounge where you can go and like leave all your information. So when people are watching other people ride or they're coming into the barn, your information is the first that they see. And you can even like print off those papers with your phone number at the bottom. So if they're interested in sessions, they can just grab that and go.
News and views is also very important, very beneficial in that regard. If you don't have the video book and you want to leave a newspaper behind, I used to do that. I'd be treating the horses and I'd leave a news and views, or the husband or the wife, whoever it is with the trainer, would be over reading that while I'm treating a horse. And then that would answer some questions for them. They'd talking about what? Can I do my dog? Can I do, whatever? And so anything that you can provide that shows that you're studying, that shows you're part of a company that is beneficial to these animals, or they want to be beneficial to the animals, that simply improves your authority. And authority is very important. When someone feels that you are the authority in an area, they'll follow you. They'll pay attention to what you're wanting to say, and they'll listen to you. So let's see here. Any other questions? are there any sensitive, my area is sensitive with people coming in. I've started carrying a letter introducing myself with my card and brochure with it. Also has helped when I'm busy, but on the area to share my info. Absolutely. Leave your card, invite them to your Facebook group, your Facebook page. That's another area. If you're in a city and you're by yourself or there's some other folks there, create a group for your Facebook page. And these people can go to the group and ask a question and get an answer. And you can pull answers from our groups. You can pull answers from a lot of places, and it gives you a place to correspond with folks and they can ask specific questions. So consider that as another avenue of marketing for you. Any tips to get my husband on board with using the MagnaWave? What can we do so he sees, what is it? It goes away, it jumped. So he sees the benefits. Well, great question. Use it. I mean, if your husband doesn't have any pain or any problems, then the machine's not going to do much for him. And I was that way. I mean, I was in this business for years and didn't use my own machine because I didn't have any issues. But once I had an issue and I used it and it helped, it worked, and they got on board, or I got further on board. It was an interesting deal. I'm limping around a farm one day. I treated 13 horses. My knee was killing me, and I'm walking around, and this woman looks at me and she says, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Well, I tore my meniscus or my MCL at one point, and I need to. It just bothering me." And she said, "Do you treat yourself?" And maybe I ought to do that. And so I went back that night, started treating my knee, and it was better. And I just didn't think about it. I mean, it's insane that people that do things, my father was a funeral director and died without a will. Go figure that one out. But those types of situations are there. So have your husband use it. And I remember when Elaine first came with us, and her husband Joe had some back issues, and Joe thought she was nuts. They thought I was nuts. And so how are we going to work this out? But once you start using it, your husband will come on board. And I'm sure people have great stories of how they've integrated it into their families and things like that. Any thoughts there, Teresa?
Yeah, or even like show him how to use it on animals, because like you mentioned, like the results really speak for themselves when you can see that before and after. And it's like you yourself that's actually giving the session and providing it, and watching the improvement happen is definitely something to take away.
Sure. Someone said, LOL, I remember the Fuller brush. They used to come by once a week. There you go. And I couldn't even get off the corner. I have a client, 70-year-old woman, interested in low-powered home use machine. Is the Spiro the lowest powered machine for home use? I'm not sure how much you'd be willing to spend on the machine for home use. Can they rent it prior to purchase? Number one, on the home use side, the Spiro would work, but on the home use side, the Nova HD, which is currently available. And if you're a practitioner and you wanted to, it's the Nova HD and the Spiro are virtually basically the same. They are the lowest powered devices we have. They're great for home use. And if somebody wants to have one, there is an opportunity to rent before they buy to make sure that they're going to want to use it and that works for them. And so that is certainly available. Talk to your product specialist. The Nova HD also allows you to promote yourself as doing human work. There are some limitations as to what you can say, but the Nova HD is an FDA registered device, and it is in the stages to receive FDA clearance, hopefully within the next 3 weeks. And that just gives you the availability to talk human, to show humans how to use it, and to do it. What machine you use in those situations is totally up to you. But the Spiro is workable in that area. The Nova HD is certainly the human-based machine that you can promote yourself as being able to work with humans. You can talk about the recovery used for sports and that type of situations with the Nova HD. So certainly talk to your product specialist. Same thing. There are rent-to-rent programs, so you could have people renting the Nova HD from you to use in their home, and it can make you some money and build your clientele out from there. So there you go. Teresa, any thoughts?
I mean, I think you covered that perfectly. I see here that Patty has a question that she gets asked frequently on if she can use MagnaWave on puppies 3 months and older. There's not really an age cutoff on when you can use PEMF. So as long as they're still good, and if they need the PEMF, just start low and slow and have it under a blanket or have it under a bed.
Sure. I mean, there's been situations. I'll never forget. I was called to a farm in Lexington. Foal was born and got up just starting to walk and got flipped and hit its head. And vet's saying, we're going to have to put this foal down. It's not going to survive. And I got a phone call and they said, can you please come down here? And Lexington's an hour away and right now and see what you can do with this foal. And I said, okay. Hopped in my car, ran down there, and the poor thing was just laying on the ground, eyes rolling back into its head, and they didn't know what they were going to do. And I put it on low. I put it right on the top of the head where it hit itself. And within 3 or 4 minutes, the eyes started moving regularly and focusing a little better. And I guess we spent a half hour treating the neck and the head of the horse. And within 2 hours, it was up. Not stable, but then a practitioner started visiting the farm daily to treat the animal, and the results were incredible. And that was immediately after birth that the horse flipped and hit its head, and they thought it was over. So there was inflammation, and the inflammation was causing problems in the swelling of the brain and the skull, which could have been fatal, or they would have had to put the animal down or cause serious eye damage or something. Just never know what happens when you get in those types of injuries. And all we did was help relieve the inflammation, help drop the swelling, which allowed the animal to feel better and then actually recover very quickly. So yes, Patty, you can treat low and slow, as Teresa was pointing out, and just build from there. Let's see, replying, hello. I'm asked frequently about, oh, there we go. That's Patty. It's Patty's question. There it is. Rent-to-rent program. I'm interested in the Spiro Kick as an additional service to clients. That'd be great. That'd be a great thing to have. The Spiro Kick allows you to work on the feet and legs of a horse while you're treating its hips or its shoulders or its neck. So it gives you great versatility in how you want to provide your treatments. It's a great, as you said, a great item. If you got somebody that needs continual treatment in the sacral area, let's say, for the next few weeks, you can treat the animal with your higher powered machines a few times and then let them rent the kick and put that on the sacral area and treat it and as often as they need to help the horse along. They might buy it, they turn it back into you, whatever, but that's an opportunity, absolutely. How long should here's this for you, Teresa. How long should you work on a horse that has cellulitis in the hind leg?
I would say it also depends on how far the cellulitis is going all the way up the leg. I mean, I've seen horses, it's just like from hoof to stifle. It does vary, but I would do at least 10 minutes and see how that goes. Does it move some of the swelling? But you also want to make sure you address like the whole hindquarters as well, because not only do you want that leg to help move the fluid, but you need to get the other areas for it to be able to fully exit the body. So it's not just a one leg, it's kind of a little bit of an everything. So
Sure.
I would say focus specifically on the leg for 10 minutes and then kind of glance over the rest of the body.
What type of setting would you recommend there?
It would have to be within comfort. I would say typically on legs, you can turn the machine up a little bit more because there's not a lot of soft tissue. But in the case of cellulitis, they could definitely be sensitive because there can be a little bit of a pain reaction when you touch it and squeeze it. So I would honestly do like medium, low, medium, because you want it high enough to kind of help to get everything moving, but it has to be within comfort.
Right. So there you go. Good opportunity there. And it's certainly, so it was a big issue back when I was on the road all the time, and we get great results in just a few minutes. But as you said, we treat the whole body and then treat the leg that was a problem, treat both legs, whatever. That was always an issue. People, and go talk about laminitis. People would get a horse that would develop laminitis, so they're treating the left leg, for example, let's say, and the horse is putting all the pressure on the right leg because the left leg is sore and having issues. And then we learned if we're going to treat the left leg for the laminitis, we need to treat the right leg as well, so it doesn't develop laminitis in the leg that is using to support the whole body. And so it's important, as you say, to treat everything. And that's what I would do. I treat the whole horse because what do I want? I want good blood flow everywhere in the animal. I want it continuing for the next 15 hours or whatever, 15, 24 hours, good blood flow going. When you do the torso, where's it going? To the feet. It's going to move to the legs. It's going to move to the feet. So you're actually treating them for hours after your treatment is completed to help those types of situations. So that's always something to consider. Let's see. There was a question. There was a question about that I saw in the, and you may have seen this one as well, Teresa. An anonymous poster was looking for some protocols. Horse with some severe ligament problems in its legs that they were bowing, and they wanted to know what to do, and it was on an antibiotic for infection. And could they treat? Is the treatment going to change the metabolization of the antibiotic? And yes, it can. I mean, so what we a lot of times do is let them administer the medication that they're doing, give it a few hours to metabolize into the body, then you can treat, and you're not going to change anything. But if they're administering the medication and you're treating right now, you can increase the metabolization, and maybe the doctor won't want that. Maybe the doctor wants, because when you administer a medication, let's say it's got 100% of the medication in the medication that you're providing, but you're only going to metabolize 20 to 30% of that, maybe a little more, but of the particular amount of the medication. And so when you treat, you can increase that amount of metabolization. There, the veterinarian may not want that amount increased. They just want them to get that percentage of the medication to do its job. That's the way the medications are designed. You think, well, I'm going to take the aspirin, I'm going to get 100% of the benefit of the aspirin. No, you're metabolizing it, and you're going to get 40% of that aspirin is going to go to work in you, and it's going to do its job. And so that's how that plays out when you find yourself in those types of situations. So just be cognizant of that. Either treat before the medication, administer the medication, and treat afterwards, so you have the metabolization that is designed to occur with the medication that someone is using. Any thoughts?
I completely agree with that. I see that Christy has a question that she's going through the certification and only has one more section to complete. So way to go. You are so close to completing everything, but she just wants to confirm that once it's completed, she will get access to everything. And yes, once that last section is completed, your status in the portal will update. So the full portal will be unlocked, that you receive all of our education content as well as access to the MagnaWave app.
There you go. Let's see here. Oh, there was also a question about FEI that I noticed in the practitioner portal about the card, the what do they call that card?
The pet card.
Yeah, the preferred equine therapist or whatever they call that. I used to be able to get the card as a MagnaWave practitioner. Things change. Actually, the shows are based on the veterinarian in charge of the show. If that veterinarian wants you to have that card to come in, then you need to have the card. If the issuing body wants you to have some other education or a certain certification before they'll give you the card, then you need to address and see what that is. But most of the time, those decisions are up to the veterinarian in charge of the show as to the strength of the device. And of course, there's a lot of question out there about that. In the FEI, it's 1,000 Gauss is the maximum Gauss that can be delivered from a device. Well, and the challenge is on the smaller devices, the Spiro and some of those with the large loop and using specific loops, they won't go over 1,000 Gauss. And so they're fine to use. But then somebody comes in with a larger machine and they want to say, I'll turn it down to here, or do you have a gauge that will measure that? Most magnetometers do not measure Gauss from our types of machines accurately. So it's very difficult for someone to establish what the Gauss level is. And of course, they're going to tell you to turn it down to this number or this setting on the dial, but then they leave. So, you know, oh my God, back when all that started, they'd want to come and stand with us in the barn and watch us do the machine and make sure that we didn't touch it and all kinds of things. But pretty much the ruling today is 1,000 Gauss maximum. And some places the cards are required, other places it doesn't happen that way. Any thoughts, Teresa?
It's difficult to say because every single event is different. I've seen people get into events with all types of machines, and then I've seen the stewards be like, you know what, we're not going to allow any PEMF machines. So it is very difficult right now FEI, but yes, the rule is 1,000 gals. And typically, as long as you can go in there and explain with this attachment or at this setting, they can typically are happy to accommodate that as long as you're able to show that you're educated and know what you're doing.
Correct, and that's the key. And again, that's the authority. You have your training. You can show that you've been trained. Maybe you're a member of the AOPP, which would be great, which gives you an additional credential that shows that you are trained, that you are a working professional in this area, and that's what they want. They want you to know what you're talking about and what you're doing. So understanding the background of the gauss, of the device, is very important when you're speaking with the folks in those situations. Let's see, but the Maya Pro, are the attachments supposed to warm up? Because they are not necessarily. The Maya Pro does run a little hotter in terms with the attachment, with the attachments that are there, but not significant, not to where someone would notice it. Someone may notice it more than somebody else, but that's not a situation in it, and they're not supposed to be hotter. Let's put it that way. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's not uncommon for coils to generate a little bit of heat due to the current that's running through them to generate the field. So if it's not hot, that's a good thing, but they can slightly warm up.
Sure. Okay, let's see. Oh, here's one. Full out of mares in my barn, had one barn with a soft palate disorder, left the client like a cleft palate, but the hard palate is intact. The soft palate is not. Any thoughts on this with MagnaWave and red light? I plan on doing acupuncture work with the craniosacral, but wanted to know if PEMF and red light would add anything to help with this guy with not a good outlook. Surgery isn't really an option for the surgeons up here in Minnesota. Well, most certainly the MagnaWave is going to add energy to the body. It's going to help the oxygenation to the area and allow the body to function the way it should. So maybe those situations can be improved and going forward in that type of situation. Thoughts, Teresa?
I don't really have experience with the soft palate disorder, so I can't speak too much, but pretty much if you're using PEMF or using red light, you're really energizing the cells and having and helping support the body on what it does naturally. So in combination with the acupuncture that's already going to be put in place, I could see it definitely being helpful and beneficial.
There you go. It's just like anything else. Does it feel good to rub your neck and make you feel better and then change your attitude? Yes. So if you do the same thing to the animal, we know that it provides us a sense of well-being, and it does. That's why I would treat a horse and they'd go out and they'd get on and they'd pay attention to them because he felt better. It was relaxed. I also had people that I would treat their horses and they'd come back to me and said, "My horse is so fresh. What did you do to my horse?" And I said, "Your horse feels good." It's not in pain, so that's why it's being fresh today or this weekend.
Sometimes horses are just very playful.
That's right. There you go. Let's see. Do you see any other questions? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, we have a question about using PEMF over fibromyalgia.
PEMF for fibromyalgia?
Mm-hmm.
I had that again going back in the beginning, and the challenge there is it would move. Somebody would hurt in their shoulders today and their back tomorrow and their knees or are all over today. And so it's difficult to chase. I mean, if you got a situation where my shoulder is bothering me, I could talk about my neck where I have just discovered I have spurs in my neck and that caused horrible problems on the right shoulder, which we can get into. But in a position that it can move, or it changes positions in the body, that makes it very difficult to chase it down. And consistency is the key. What I learned there is I take those folks, I just would actually treat their back, and I treat their upper back or lower back. So basically we're getting the entire spinal cord. We're helping the oxygenation through the lungs. And again, where's all that going to go? It's going to go throughout the whole body. And so hopefully that can help relieve the inflammation in various areas of the body. That's all it is fibromyalgia is inflammation in various areas of the body at various times, and it can become very debilitating. And I would have somebody, I remember one young lady in particular, she came and I treated her low back and her upper back, and she came back the next day and said it didn't do anything. And I said, okay, let's try it again. And so we did it again, and this time we treated her hips as well. And so we did that because it was a 3 or 4 day show. So I worked with her every day. The week later, she calls me and says, my God, I can't believe how much better I'm doing, but it's still there. What do I need to do? And I said, you need to continue utilizing the device. I don't know that we don't talk about cures and what we can stop. We're not going to stop necessarily the fibromyalgia. Your body might stop. Your body might figure a way of doing that, or medication that you're receiving. All we can do is enhance the medication, enhance the oxygenation, reduce the inflammation, which hopefully will allow you to feel better going forward. So most certainly, it's a tough condition to deal with, but it can be beneficial for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I know, going a little off topic, I always like to think of the body like within a balance. So whenever you apply that energy, you're helping the body go back into balance. And the body is just amazing how it is all connected and how it can like help itself get better. So applying energy can help the balance. That's just something I think about often.
Sure. Any other questions that you see?
Yeah, so we have a question from a Facebook user, and they say, is MagnaWave extremely beneficial for horses right directly, like 30 minutes, 2 hours after a run workout competition? I know we try hard to address 1 to 3 days ahead of the race or show, but I'm curious to see the benefits after or post run.
Well, another great question, and it's something that we dealt with in the beginning. When I first started, once a trainer came on board, and I got the trainers on board with their horses by treating the trainers, helping them feel better, be more relaxed, and so forth. And they said, well, do this to my horse. Well, what would happen, they pick a horse, and I'd treat the horse on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday if they were competing on Sunday. We did it every day. And then that's over. And so then they go on to the next show, and if we were going to be there or if somebody was going to be there, same routine would happen. Well, and that was good because I wanted to do treatments. I needed to make a living, so I wanted to do as many treatments as I could. But in the reality, once a horse was at its optimum and it didn't need to be treated every day, and maybe it'd go to a show and maybe we treat it on Wednesday, and then if the horse held, if you will, maybe we were good for the entire show. Sometimes we'd come back on Friday and they'd say, well, he's backing up a little bit, so we'd do it again, and they would carry him through the weekend. And then they'd go on. An interesting thing then began to occur because people were spending money. So they're spending money to win. They want to compete. They want a good ride. They want a good sit. So they're spending on the treatments to do well. But then we started talking about, but you know what? After the event, to help their recovery, so they recover and they're ready to go next week, treat them after the event. And that really is when the term session or therapy, we got to be careful what we say and how we say it, but that's when it really became a tool to help with recovery. Yeah, we want to jump higher, we want to pay attention easier, we want to run faster, and I always used to say, I really can't help your horse run faster. I can maybe help your horse run fast longer, because its muscle tone, its development, it's going to tell how fast it can go. But its oxygenation and it's how it's assimilating what's going on can help it run longer. And so that was the big deal with camels. Group of folks came over and they wanted me to show them how to treat their camels. They came to Kentucky to visit me here, and how can we treat or work on our camels so they'll run faster and beat the Sheik's camels. And I said, I can't make your camels go faster. I can just help them run fast longer. And that made a difference. That allowed them to be a little more competitive with what in the spaces that they were in. Same thing. I was in Dubai, and we were doing work for the eventing folks and the endurance riders, and they do endurance seriously. I mean, they're talking 125, 150 mile endurance runs. And so they wanted their horses, number one, to recover, but they wanted them to have whatever best blood flow and oxygenation and things that they could have, so they could better sustain that distance that they would go, and it worked. And it was very interesting from that type of situation. Hope that helps.
Well, since we're talking about all different types of animals, Todd has a question on will we talk about show pig benefits and using MagnaWave or PEMF for pigs that travel to shows?
We keep going back to history, but I'll never forget when we had our first in Ohio was a practitioner who showed pigs, And she would use the equipment, and worked out very well. And we thought, is this real? Is this really going to help? But then I saw it, how the pig's gait would change, the conformation would change. You don't think about the stress that an animal it feels when it's going to go into a ring or go into a competition. But there's people there, there's things going on. They get stressed. And so if we can help relieve that stress, that'll make them perform in better fashion. And we've learned that. And now you see with Jesse and all the folks that are working on show cattle and show pigs and all this kind of stuff, that just to help them perform and be more comfortable is a very beneficial aspect that the MagnaWave can bring to the table. I think it's so funny. Again, in all this history, but I'll never forget the first time I went to Cowboy Christmas in Las Vegas, and then of course they have the national rodeo there. They've moved it now, but they would have the rodeo and all that stuff going on. And so I'm wanting to treat the rodeo horses, and I didn't think about it. Years later, all of a sudden we're treating the bucking bulls, so they buck better to throw the riders off. We're treating the riders so they can be more agile and feel better. And when they, so it's just amazing that we're competing, working on factors that each one of them. The rider didn't want us making the bull buck better, but the bull owner did. So the whole situation worked out in that fashion. It was just so funny to experience that. And when I went, I didn't think about the bulls. All I was thinking about was the horses that were involved in the rodeo and the fashion. I didn't think about what we could do with the other animals participating. But all that is certainly on the table today, and it works. The amount of availability for animals to work with is amazing. Same thing in the agility business in the dogs and the show dogs take away their stress, make them more comfortable as they walk. Always amazes me that's happening.
Yeah. Hazel Reed has a question on how long after a hock injection on a horse should we wait to MagnaWave?
If they're injecting into the bursa, which is what they're doing, you can treat immediately. Now, Teresa, you may have a different feeling on this at this point. I want to get your feeling, but we had this situation when I was first starting, is they'd be injecting the knees or the hocks, and people would say, well, if you treat that, you're going to flush it out. No, if they're injecting into the bursa, they're helping that. And then typically there's inflammation around it. I mean, if they're having a problem and they need to inject, it's bigger than just the area that they're injecting. The area they're injecting is where the damage is, or where the help is needed. But that spreads. I'll never forget when I was in school, I was studying pathology and microbiology, and I learned all the muscle structures and all of this kind of stuff, and the fascia of the body, how it holds everything together and in place. And so, here I am out treating horses and doing things, and it just didn't click that I'm treating a hip or a shoulder of an animal, and that area immediately feels better. It's less responsive. I mean, to the touch and so forth. But I didn't think about, we need to go down the leg a little bit, because the fascia, if you're inflamed here, the fascia down here can be inflamed as well. So I make this feel better. I don't do anything here. What's going to happen? It's going to start creeping right back up to where the problem was to begin with. So that's the theory for the whole horse treatment, or to understand that if you're doing the knee, you want to do above and below the knee at the same time. You want to do the hip area or the shoulder, wherever it is, just to get the whole area, like an automobile accident, clear it out, get the rubbernecking blood cells out of the way. And when we're see the auto accident, everybody's turning their head. Well, they need to keep going straight and clear up a lot quicker. So hope that helps. Any thoughts, Teresa?
Yeah. So back to just like the injection on the hock, typically I recommend waiting 48, 72 hours to address just over the hock. They can do the rest of the body to kind of help with any like inflammation and compensation that could be going on. But I like to give the injection just a couple of days to kind of like settle and make sure that is working first before you start applying the PEMF over it.
And that makes perfect sense. And that's really what we would do. They would inject the hocks or inject the knees, and we would do an overall treatment on the body, typically upper body. And when I first did it, I treated the upper body on all the animals. I only went to the legs if they would tell me, we got a knee problem. We need to treat this knee before we do the injection, or we're going to, whatever, or we got a foot issue. Can we treat the feet? Yeah, no problem. Relax them, get them better blood flow, help the hoof grow, whatever the situation may be, help pull the abscess that's there. But those types of situations, so most certainly that's great advice. Wait 24, 48 hours and then go back and treat as you need to or want to. Great. Perfect. Okay.
We have another question from Katie about using fly spray and other topical medications. Like, how long should they wait before they put on the topical medications, or like use PEMF and MagnaWave? And typically for those topicals, I like to wait about half an hour just so the body is able to kind of like utilize them and then apply the PEMF over, or use the MagnaWave first and then the topicals.
That's perfect. And that's where I was going with the medication. Mm-hmm. It will, if you put a topical on, and you can talk to some of the trainers that have gotten in trouble for using various topicals, but if you put a topical on your arm, for example, or on the leg of a horse, and you put the PEMF right over it, you're going to increase the absorption. If you want that increased absorption, fine. And if the veterinarian is with you on that, or whatever. But in a lot of cases, as Teresa pointed out, let it do its job. As I've talked about with medication, let them have the medication, give them a few hours for that to be digested. The digestive tract of a horse is much more rapid than what ours is. And so give them the time to better assimilate that, then go back and treat, and you're not going to. We used to get that question all the time. I apologize for jumping topic to topic. But people will say, well, I'm doing this. Is this going to make me test? I administered this particular medication and I don't want it to test. And not that they don't want it to test, they don't want it to be increased. All of a sudden it tests at a level that it's not appropriate to be. Again, if they administer the medication and it's in the system, once it's metabolized and you go treat, you're not going to increase what's there. The only way you're going to increase anything is to treat while it's being metabolized, and then you can change the metabolization a little bit, which could potentially change something like that. But we were learning so much every day. We didn't know. We're treating animals that have been injected, selected, and everything, and they were being tested afterwards, but they were fine. They weren't failing the tests because we treated them. But that was a very good question, and people need to understand that. Timing is important, and as Teresa pointed out, and she does in all of the educational materials that cover that as to what is proper timing. Okay.
We have a really great question here, and Pat, I do want your input of, do we need to be aware of, or does PEMF affect growth plates in the body? And is that something we need to be aware of when addressing young animals?
Okay. And that's, I'm glad you brought that up. I saw that it was posted, or it gets posted quite often. I've had extensive conversations over the years with veterinarians and doctors about growth plates. And the issue is, with our type of equipment, that it's instantaneous, or it's very quick bursts of energy, all right? A nanosecond burst of energy. And so just to give you an example, it would take 17, you have to put the coil on the animal, turn it on for 17 hours. That's a number that we did mathematically. 17 hours, you leave it on there for that length of time. And I always say this two ways. People say, oh, I can't wrap my head around what you're going to say. So I always do give them two numbers. 17 hours gets you 1 minute of exposure that you would receive from a microwave or your telephone up to your head. It's not a minute, it's a second. So in order to get 1 second of that exposure, I'm talking radiation type of exposure, you have to leave it on the animal for up to that length of time to get that kind of exposure. Now, coming back to growth platelets, same type of situation. Could something alter the growth plates and have a negative impact? The answer is it could, but we're not providing enough to where it would make any difference. So, and it's the same thing. If you're treating an animal that's got a young animal that's got a sore knee, and you treat it for 30 minutes a day for a week, and the knee is better, oh my God, are you changing the growth patterns of the knee? No. That's never been substantiated. People have discussed it. They've talked about it. 20 years we've been doing this, and that's never come up as an issue that, oh, you altered this type of situation. Number one, there's not the way the energy is delivered. It's just not, doesn't have the consistency to do that. If the machine ran like an MRI machine, if you put an MRI machine over an infant for extended periods of time, you could maybe alter what's going on with the growth plates and so forth in that infant or that small animal. But for quickly, occasionally, no, you're not. That's not an issue that's ever been of any major concern. Back in the beginning, I got a lot of things like that. A veterinarian would say, well, you do this, you do that, you do this, and so that's not good. And we'd say, okay, can you tell us how that happens? Well, when they go back and do the research, they come back and say, well, I don't guess you do that. You're not, there was always questions about, well, you're going to fatigue the soft tissue. You're going to fatigue the muscle because you're pulsing it. I guess if we pulsed it for 24 hours, it could be fatigued. But to pulse it out of a 20-minute treatment or a 45-minute treatment, and you're pulsing this area of the leg for 2 minutes or 4 minutes or 10 minutes, if you do that area, you're not going to fatigue the tissue in that regard.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yep, I definitely agree with everything that you just said. Melissa here posted a really nice comment that she had a show pig that blew their hawk, and MagnaWaved her for several times a week for a couple of months, and then she got better, was able to walk, and you couldn't tell that she ever blew that hawk. So that's amazing to hear.
There you go. Great comment. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I don't see Camilla. I read that one already. Any other ones pop up? My thing is out.
Yeah. We have one from Leslie. Any suggestions on how to address laryngeal paralysis in a dog?
Well, it depends on the stage of the paralysis. We have the same thing with flaps in horses when they roar, or the situation they have with their flap, and they'll have a stage of paralysis that makes it so they have difficulty breathing, or that when they're running, they're making noise, and that type stage. So if the paralysis is just beginning, it's like anything else. If you could get it to it quickly, then you can rejuvenate the area, you can improve the blood flow to the area, you can give it the nourishment that it needs. Maybe it can better utilize the medications that are being administered to the area, and you can do that. If it's I forget what the stages were in the paralysis, but if it's stage 4 paralysis, you're not going to do much. I mean, it's paralyzed. In many cases, it atrophies, and you got to turn things around. That's very difficult. The sooner you get to the situation, the better it will be. Now, I had a racehorse that had a flap issue, paralysis, and it would have difficulty breathing, and we started treating the horse before the race. And back then we could treat race day, but even before that, we would treat the evening before the race if we were in a state where they didn't want us doing anything race day. And the horse, we would simply treat the neck area, the esophagus, and the whole area where it would have the issue, and it did better, and it would win. And it was wonderful. The horse got claimed, and the new owner said, I'm not going to do that. I'll do something different. Well, the horse never performed. And we treated this horse, I followed it to Florida. I followed it to New York, treated this horse for 2 or 3 years. We would go 2 days before the race, treat it twice, one day, treat it the next day, and the horse would perform wonderfully. It'd come back. I mean, it needed to recover, and that whole type of situation. So it's when you do it, it's the severity of what's going on. And I think that's the beauty that we've learned with the NFL football players when the trainers use this. The more rapidly you treat a hamstring injury, the quicker you're going to have the result that you're looking for, and the better it's going to recover, and it's going to recover in a faster manner. We're not healing it. We're just setting it up to recover. And so that's the same type of situation there. You may make the dog more comfortable. It just depends how it is and how long it's been there. Any thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when it's in the earlier phases, you want to make sure that nerve does get the good blood supply so it doesn't degrade as fast, or it can stop in one of the earlier phases.
Great.
We also have a very good comment from a Facebook user that says, ask your vet and follow veterinary protocol with any sort of injections in a horse. If a vet says, hey, we don't want you doing this timeline, please listen to the vet, because they might have other reasons of why they might want to hold off or go for it right away. And it's just always, you always want to work with a vet or a medical professional.
Absolutely. We've always said that. Follow the call of the veterinarian, of the owner, and follow that. We're not going to diagnose anything. That's not our role. Our role is to help support the well-being of the animal. And so whatever they tell us to do is exactly what we should do. And I know that there are people on this call that have been working with horses far longer than I have, and doing other modalities and other things, and their knowledge is amazing, and yet they may know more than what somebody knows, but they're not the doc, and they need to follow that guidance, and they do. The people that I know that have that experience still come back and say, this is what the vet wants to do, that's what we're going to do. And I don't think you want that liability. You don't need to assume that liability. You just perform the services and the sessions that you know will be beneficial to the animal.
Exactly. And I think we have time for one more question. This is from Davy, and she said she's seen a couple of posts recently that are showing kind of like the muscle movement after the coils have been removed. Do you want to elaborate on why that can happen?
Yes, a lot of times that turns into a situation where they need hydration or they need electrolytes, and so it's not unusual in some cases to where you're treating a horse. It has a deficiency of something, some type of vitamin or some mineral in its body, and it's causing a Charlie horse type of situation, or a continued muscle flexation after the thing, and you'll take the coil off and it'll just sit there and continue to pulse for a time. It'll subside, but typically what we recommend, and what we did this with veterinarians, they said, well, you need to make sure the hydration is there. That's why we always say make sure there's plenty of water, or you have electrolytes, or that type of situation that you're administering. So that's there. It happens. Some animals are more prone to it than others. Some, every time, oh, there it is. And so they just need to stay with it. It's not a problem. It's not dangerous. It's just need to understand what it is. If this is where confidence is the key, because you're sitting there treating an animal and you walk away and the owner comes up to you and says, it's still going over here. It's still twitching. What's the deal? Well, you need to be able to explain that and understand that, and they'll be fine with that. Okay. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun, huh? Mm-hmm. Teresa, I want to thank you for being with me today. It's always a pleasure when I get to come in and say hi to you folks and work with you, and it's wonderful. So thank you very much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. We always enjoy working to answer your questions and help you be successful in your endeavors, whether you're using it personally or you're using it to have a business. We want to be there to support you. So thank you for being here. Wave on to better health. Go all the way with MagnaWave and have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.